Hey there, YouTube, Izzy Wallip out here with another reaction video. Today we got Inside China's Torture Camps for Teens by Fern. Let's get right into it, shall we? Hit it. Here we go.
A crisp morning in February 2013.
You telling me it's within this last decade? Holy shit, 2013?
A teenager from northern China wakes up to fervent rapping on his door. Let's call him Doug. Doug is in his final year of high school.
So previous night, me and my parents will have a pretty big fight.
They'd had the same fight a million times already, about what university Doug was going to go to and what career option he was going to pursue, about why he...
As every Asian student or parent and son or daughter usually goes through. Yeah, that is part of life. That does not change.
He was more interested in drumming than in studying. It was heated, and everyone went to bed angry.
Look, I feel for him, man. It's like, look, you have someone who's actually interested in the arts, and your parents want you to go into STEM or medical sciences. It's like, yeah, I feel for you, 100%. Following your passion, following your dream is not really, I won't say well respected, but it's not really, an appreciated decision to make, for sure.
But even when Doug's parents are angry, they don't ever knock this way. Blurry-eyed, he opens the door and sees two strange men dressed in ordinary clothes.
They claim they are police. They're saying, okay, do you know this person? Blah, 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 which is a name I never heard of. He said he is in trouble. He got picked up yesterday. And he said, you are his culprit, like a partner in crimes. And they said I was required to go with them to assist in some investigation.
Doug has no idea what they're talking about. He's starting
Funny
to
enough,
panic.
It's actually a story time for myself because there was a very similar situation to this years ago. But I think I'll put that. I'll hold that story for another time. I think that's actually a pretty interesting story that happened years ago.
A little, because he's used the VPN to access YouTube to watch drumming tutorials.
Ooh, ouch.
They take him to their car. Doug is surprised they're driving a regular Jeep, not an official police car. The men explained that they did this on purpose to save him the embarrassment of being seen being
undercover,
taken away by the
right?
police. So Doug gets in the car. But when they start driving, they go right past the local police station.
This audio is
30 minutes later,
terrifying.
in another part of the city, they pull into an enclosed compound with a tall green gate. Doug has the sinking feeling that the men were lying. They aren't police at all. He feels he won't leave this compound for quite a while. It's a special place for kids with behavioral problems, one of many across the country, each with their own ever more cruel practices to force teenagers into obedience. What exactly is happening at these schools? How are they allowed to exist? And what does World of Warcraft have to do with it all?
Funny enough, the only World of Warcraft information on this I know of is from Asmongold. And what he would usually tell is, like, you have these Chinese miners who would come in and mine gold, and then they still make money by selling the gold on, like, the international exchanges, where well, it's not like the gray market, they're not supposed to be selling it, but you can sell gold. And it depends on the conversion rate, you can make money. This introduction is terrifying. Fern, you outdid yourself in this one, my G. Okay, wow. It feels eerie. I'm playing this play out. And where is the audio designer? Shut up. A mixer in this case, I don't know.
China in the early aughts. A windowless room underground, dark, except for the flickering of screens. It smells like cigarettes, instant noodles, and teenage boys. Keyboards clack, computers whir. There's occasional yelling, but nobody's arguing. Everyone is in their own world. For many across the country, this place, the internet cafe or Wangba, is home away from home. As the country grows wealthier, internet usage increases dramatically, especially among the young. Teenagers spend more and more time in 24-hour Wangba, and their parents, who were raised before the country's tech revolution, just don't get the appeal. How could their kids be more interested in World of Warcraft than getting ahead in school, playing sports, and even dating? Parents are growing seriously worried. China is an increasingly competitive society.
Yeah.
Many see good grades as the only ticket to a successful future. And the internet makes more and more negative headlines in the country. Teenagers setting a deadly fire to an internet cafe for being denied entry. Teens apparently dying of exhaustion after 20-hour sessions. A moral panic over the dangers of the internet is emerging. In 2005, a Beijing judge states that over 90% of crimes committed by under 18s were because of the internet. A pretty wild guess, considering that at that point, only 10% of the nation is even online.
Yeah, that's...
By 2006, the Central Committee of the Communist Youth League proclaims that internet addiction is a severe social problem that could threaten the nation's future.
Okay.
The government claims that internet addiction is now the #1 public health threat to its teenage population. Something must be done.
Okay.
Now that it's not 2006, we're all aware that knowing your way around a
I will
computer,
jump that.
the CCP swoops in fast with harsh measures. Teens are banned from internet cafes, which are periodically raided by the police. So unregistered cafes crop up, known as dark wamba. The government tries implementing controls that kick kids off of games when they've played.
Yeah, this is... I remember this. There was a recent ruling. I'm not sure, was it enforced for this? I don't know how long it's been up, but I think you can't... I'm not sure if it's in Genshin Impact or like some of the Chinese games where it's like you have... If you're in the Chinese server, you actually have to link it, I don't know, with your government ID, and then they lock you out after a set period of time. Or like if you're in school, you only play for like maybe like an hour to 2 hour duration in the day, and that's it. You can't play it, like the game just doesn't work if you try logging it any other time of the day. Which was wild to me. It's like, well, damn, that seems a bit, really invasive, isn't it?
Long, but teenagers are crafty
Yeah.
and can often find ways around restrictions. A bigger, more comprehensive approach is needed. In 2008, internet addiction, or Wang Yin, officially becomes a clinical disorder. For years, China was the only country to pathologize internet usage in this way. The official consequences of this disorder are listed as a loss of control over time spent online, a lack of friends, bad grades, and eventually murder or suicide. But in practice, its status as a disorder doesn't mean it's diagnosed with much scientific rigor. Internet addiction is not measured by the hard number of hours kids spend online, for example. Symptoms like depression, fainting, and anorexia are all enough to get a kid a diagnosis. If your parents don't like who you're dating, you too could be diagnosed as an internet addict.
Well, yeah, obviously, this is a problem when you don't have a scientific process to kind of come to that conclusion. It's just like, oh, you're depressed, internet addiction. It's like, it's a very easy like band-aid patch to basically say you're addicted to the internet. And I understand that there are severe cases where you can be, you can have an internet addiction, and it really is worthwhile pursuing the path of, might want to detox from the internet. Fine. But then, I guess I really don't have a comparison to this because there isn't really a personal experience that really molds along in this line, because it is something that you note with most East Asian like countries. You have like such hyper competitive economies that like even when it rips into social life, it's like you have cultures that have not had the time to evolve to interact with the internet age, which I think is, you can have hundreds of thousands of years of like common like things like dating, agriculture, chilling around, business, warlording, wars. But yeah, and in the recent 100 years, it's just been the explosion of the internet. So you can have very competitive economies and cultures that just simply haven't had the time to assimilate or understand what the internet is. And what the internet truly remains is our most efficient way of information transfer and our most efficient and probably ingenious way of connecting countries instantaneously. The fact that you can have like Wi-Fi calling or like data calling, like FaceTime is still magic to me, because it's like, I remember back in the day when I was like 2006, 2007, where it was the Nokia E75 that my dad had. And I remember you can basically, go on Google and be like, oh my God, Google's on the screen. Holy shit. It's like I've not even seen laptops with Google on it. But then and 2007 was the year the iPhone released. So within like 3-4 years, I saw my dad with like, was it a Samsung Galaxy Mini? I think was the first one he had. It was a touch screen and everything. I was like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is, father, please, I need a cell phone. And then he got me a Nokia. Of course he did. And in my life alone, I've had situations where my parents have said, look, you're getting addicted to the internet. You probably should get out of it. And I was addicted to my phone. I admit that. But it's with the times. Unless you really give yourself the opportunity to learn and understand about the internet, hell, I don't think you'd, mature or develop as a person. So I can see the struggle they're going with, which is obviously, how do you deal with a problem that has not yet existed and now you're classifying it as a problem? What life experience could they use to try and convince their child to say, hey, from my experience, you shouldn't be doing that? But they don't have a comparison for this. This is something so new that they're just terrified. It's like the mind can't comprehend. What is this black magic thing that is demonically affecting my son or daughter? How dare you? And then honestly, most Asian response to that is just removing the thing that is causing the distraction. So you just not be surprised if your Wi-Fi just cuts off one day. Which is a fun fact. My dad used to do it years ago. It was like at midnight, it just cuts off the Wi-Fi router. I was like, oh my fucking god. That brings back memories. But looking at it now, I can see the horrifying reality in a country that designates it a disease. Jesus. Let's keep going.
Really, anything socially undesirable might fall under the internet addiction umbrella.
Yeah, and I think that is actually really important. Like, this really does depend on how hyper competitive the cultures are. But I think it's also only in East Asian culture that I've seen there's this concept of face, which is, I don't have a very good example for this. I've not really lived in those regions. So as I understand it, if you do something that is remotely considered not good, as deemed by society, you are shunned from it, apparently. Or you're looked down upon, which I think is, I think certain cultures have their way and approach of doing things, but I can see why that kind of approach in the culture leads to more, I'd say it adds to extremes. It's like when the good is there, it leads to extreme good. Obviously, that's nice. It goes to bad, it leads to really bad situations that can develop as well. So we'll play it out, and I'm sorry for ranting here, but this is something I've always been genuinely interested in because I don't see this as part of many other cultures. This is really new to me.
In this climate, the state-run broadcaster CCTV releases a bombshell documentary, Fighting the Internet Demon, Who Turned Our Geniuses into Beasts. It condemns online games like World of Warcraft as digital heroin. It aims to raise awareness about internet addiction as a widespread social problem. And most importantly, it glorifies the virtues of a very particular kind of treatment. Military-style boot camps that will rehabilitate kids with a tough love combo of therapy, medication, and physical training. The first camp was set up in 2006 near Beijing by a famed colonel in the People's Liberation Army, Tao Run. Tao Run is celebrated for his work in rehabilitating drug addicts at similar boot camps. For Tao, the internet is just another drug. He's quoted in the New York Times at the time saying, "The effects are the same. Some addicts drop out of school, some mug people for money, steal and sell their families' things to keep playing games. Some end up killing themselves because they feel life has no point." With so much fear-mongering rhetoric floating around, parents across China are clutching their pearls. The internet really is a demon turning their geniuses into beasts. But this kindly colonel, who had such great results in rehabilitating drug addicts, is fortunately here to help. The boot camps become a popular answer to parents at their wits' end. Sometimes they are characterized as schools, centers, or clinics as well, depending on their approach. But in either case, they are mainly for the wealthy. The majority are very expensive for the average Chinese person. And being relatively cheap to run, they are also highly lucrative. The majority have been opened up by former Chinese army officers. The Fighting the Internet Demon documentary praises one facility in particular, in the Shandong district in eastern China. It's run by a psychiatrist named Yang Yongxin.
Oh my god, I did not think I'd see the name ever again, but Holy shit, that just like shocked me. From was like because for most people who don't know, Yang Yongshin is the reference, completely off track here. He's the reference character in, what is it? In Dead by Daylight, you have all these killers. The gameplay being you are a killer and you have to track down for, like, survivors on the map, and then if you kill all four of them, you win the game. Or, well, basically, if unless any of them escape. So there is some variation in that idea. But generally speaking, all these killers are like cool concepts. Like you have like the monster from Stranger Things there. You have like the trapper. But you also have a character called the Doctor, who is the character I love the most. And I only, years, like I think a year and a half ago, realized the Doctor was based off of this guy right here, Yang Yongshin. Not because of like, his ability to kill people. No, it's because of his use of shock therapy. And I know where my man is going with this documentary now. Because if it's shock therapy, then what comes next is probably drug therapies or something along those lines. So let's keep watching.
Proclaims he's on a holy crusade to cure internet addiction.
Uh-huh.
He's been honored with a special grant from the state government for his unusually effective methods.
Yeah.
Many people call him Uncle Yang out of gratitude and affection for his services and dedication. But in some circles, perhaps those who've spent time with him in room 13, good old Uncle Yang is known as a sadistic mass torturer.
Yeah.
Back in 2013, Doug finds himself in an enclosed
What was
compound.
actually interesting to me is also, like, before we were going ahead with the story, Yang Yongshin, like the person he's mentioned here, as I recall the last time I heard about it, still runs his own hospital, if I'm not wrong, with his own department on like helping students and children out by giving them shock therapy. So it's like, it's not even like, turned away by like the people or like the government or anything else like that. He's freely still running his own thing, which is wild to me.
Officially, Doug's camp is called a vocational school.
I was
Legally.
required to partake in the formal routine, which is waking up in 7 a.m. There's morning exercise, which is like jogging, marching pace around the schoolyard, which is kind of like a prison. It's like a boot camp / private run juvenile.
Yeah, I can see that.
correctional
Yeah, 100%.
facility / prison in disguise.
At these places, internet addiction often acts as a type of catch-all umbrella for undesired behaviors. Behaviors these institutions aim to correct. All across China, parents fed up with their kids will orchestrate kidnappings and deliver them to drill sergeants and dodgy psychologists. Luckily, Doug is not in the care of Uncle Yang. He'll never set foot in room 13.
Okay, good for him.
But that doesn't mean this new school of his won't scar him for life.
Yeah.
And they explained to me, you're here because your parents think you are on the edge, that you need to be sent here to correct your behavior.
He doesn't know how to feel about the fact that his parents sent him here.
Yeah.
Are family problems really grounds for getting locked up?
I feel angry, I feel helpless, and I wanted to run, but at that point I was still shocked and too confused to know what's going on. I thought, like, where is this place? Why am I
And
here?
I think this is something that's more important, is because, look, it's one thing to deal with problems, but it's one of those things in children that it's counterintuitive, and I will always appreciate my parents. I'll always love my parents for this, is because I've had periods of my life where it was like things letting go. Like, there were some really big problems that were going on, and they, regardless of the arguments I had, and I've had plenty of arguments with my parents, is they still trusted me to solve my own problems. They still trusted me by saying, hey, you need to get out of it. We told you what we could, but hey, at the end of the day, it's your life. So you want to pull yourself together or you lose everything. And that's it. So yeah, there have been some serious situations, and it was like, yeah, I've faced difficulties, but I'm proud to sit here today because, yeah, you go through those difficulties because that's what it is to live. You go through difficulties, you go through tough times, you come out a better, stronger person. But I understand that privilege of having my parents have trust and belief in me to, kind of go ahead and do those things. I can only imagine the horrifying realization these kids face when they're like, bro, my parents don't trust me to do this. They don't trust themselves to take care of me, so they're sending me to this correctional facility who they trust more than me. That is heartbreaking. And that can scar children for life. That can cause self-esteem issues. Because it's like, it's just painful, bro. I feel for that.
It's like you're not free to leave, and don't even try to run, because when you try it, we will tackle you down and you will be watched 24/7. And I was like, okay, I don't want to suffer any physical damages, so I just complied to whatever they said. I just followed exactly what they told me.
Doug describes the school as 5 stories high, barricaded by a tall green gate. The compound is surrounded by a 3-meter wall topped with iron wire. Inside the facility, Doug quickly becomes absorbed into the grueling, repetitive activities. While we couldn't independently verify all of the details of his particular camp and experiences there, his account is very similar to the many testimonies of other former detainees of similar camps. Doug describes an ongoing cycle of military-style drills, mandatory therapy, and pointless lessons where the teacher would just hit play on the VCR. Like any prison, the food is terrible. And as Doug describes it, hygiene standards are also questionable. Though the detainees are constantly doing exercise, they're only permitted 1 shower per week. He has no contact with his family, his friends, or the outside world in general. Doug is surprised that not everyone is a teenager. Some are as young as 6. A few are in their mid-
6? What kind of family problems do you have to go up at 6?
30s. Those who aren't minors were, according to Doug, also delivered by an abduction organized by their families and the school, and find themselves incarcerated for dubious reasons. This happens at other facilities too. Doug quickly discovers there's a pecking order amongst the detainees.
Students that's been there longer, who is more acquainted with the rules, putting forth some kind of discipline on other students, and the caretaker will turn a blind eye on what is actually happening. So there is a lot of bullying, there's a lot of physical abuses happening, especially when you are new there. They will try to discipline you.
He says that guards would encourage kids to physically keep each other in line. At one point, an older detainee struggles to keep up with the demands of the drills. As punishment, the caretakers forced other students to drag him around while running. There are ways you can gain approval from the guards, however.
There are Stockholm syndromes, so everybody is trying to win the favor of the caretaker just in exchange for better conditions. For example, you get certain privileges, so you can get more food when you're at the canteen. You get to skip the regular routine to help out in the kitchen. Just like that. So at a certain point, there's one guy who is, I think he started this trend by giving the caretaker like a back massage. So everybody just kind of follows him, like, hey, would you like a massage? We can give you that. Unfortunately, I was one of the followers of this trend.
The overall experience was deeply traumatizing, but Doug sees some merits in it.
I was there mainly because of my disputes between me and my parents. So I was lucky to got a very experienced therapist assigned to me. So we have in-depth exchange. It helped a lot. I think that was the only part.
Okay.
Overall, he considers
Why not just
himself...
pay for therapy? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I get the whole thing. Why not just pay for therapy and be done with it? I feel like everything else is kind of just abuse, if I may be so bold to say that. Clearly.
Lucky, if in a cynical way. His experience was brutal. Kids were beaten up in front of him, psychologically abused by former military guards/caretakers. He was locked up without contact to the outside world for 4 months against his will, none of his friends even knowing what happened to him. But of all these lucrative, poorly regulated camps that sprang up so quickly, his was way less extreme than others. Especially compared to what Uncle Yang was up to.
There's a reason why he's legendary in some games, yeah. For notoriously.
Psychologist Yang Yong-sin, good old Uncle Yang, is claimed to have been concerned with the effects of internet addiction as far back as 1999. Back then, computers were rare in China. Uncle Yang's son was very excited to have this new toy that not everyone else had. But then his son started spending more hours playing games than studying. It grew into a problem, and for Uncle Yang, it was clearly something that needed psychiatric support. He started lecturing about the dangers of the internet, which resonated with more and more parents as more and more of their teens got online. In 2006, Uncle Yang was granted a wing at his local hospital to set up the first clinical treatment center for internet addiction. In contrast to Tao Ran's focus on military-inspired discipline, Uncle Yang's approach emphasized medication. He developed a psychiatric treatment that he called brain waking. Both approaches were generally viewed favorably at the time, and both boasted very high success rates. Fighting the internet demon opens with the praise that Uncle Yang's methods were unusually effective. It claims that even the most addicted and rebellious teens would emerge from this treatment room completely cured and apologize to their parents. And for the parents who missed the documentary, there were also frequent commercials running on TV that sang the clinic's praises. By 2009, nearly 3,000 young people were treated with good old Uncle Yang's brain-waking method. First, the patients are forcibly delivered or tricked into the center. Then, their parents are prompted to sign an agreement that relinquishes guardianship for the duration of the treatment. A typical treatment lasts 4 months, costing nearly $900 per month. The average monthly salary in China at the time is around $400. That plus high penalties if patients run away or if parents decide to end the treatment before Uncle Yang proclaims the patient as cured.
Okay.
Brain waking consists of a total detox from the internet, morning lessons, exercise in the afternoon, and a combination of antidepressants, sedatives, and traditional Chinese medicine.
Okay.
The morning lessons are essentially public humiliation sessions, where the patients are collectively criticized to the soundtrack of dramatic music and their sobbing parents. All of that, and frequent trips to Room 13. Room 13 is where the patients are administered Uncle Yang's very special treatment that made him famous. Only patients are allowed in, no parents. The patients are told that if they tell anyone about the method, the treatment won't work and Uncle Yang will have to start over. With the calm conviction of a man who believes he's fighting a holy crusade, Uncle Yang attaches electrodes to the patient's hands and temples. It doesn't matter that he's not licensed to administer electroshocks. He's fighting the good fight. The children's minds are unclear, so he needs to use microcurrents to clear them. A mouth guard is inserted to prevent the patient from biting off their tongue. Then, a skull-rattling shockwave of electricity is shot through the electrodes for several minutes at a time.
Minutes?
Over the course of about 30 minutes. In the rare, last resort cases that electroconvulsive therapy is still used nowadays, a shockwave is usually sent for just a few milliseconds, or maximum 1 minute. The patient is under general anesthesia and shouldn't feel any discomfort. Not so in the care of Uncle Yang. Here, the pain is part of the treatment, and the shockwaves are often several minutes long. Former patients describe the pain as unimaginable, like a needle inserted into the brain, but far, far worse. Sometimes a shock was said to leave burns. One teenager, Teng Fei, reported to The Guardian that he was given ECT dozens of times in 6 or 7 sessions over the course of just over a month. When he tried to escape Room 13, he was given another 30-minute round of shocks. Teng Fei told his parents about the ECT, who promptly removed him from Uncle Yang's treatment center. They were fined, but glad to have their son out of the clutches of a mad doctor. Other parents were reportedly also concerned with the methods used, but allowed the treatment to continue so that their children would be released more quickly.
No, okay, so I think that's where I draw the line. 100%. Me, this is just horrifying. Yeah, because that is just horrifying. It's like, bro, could you imagine just living a normal day life and then you're kidnapped, taken to this place. And you have electroshock therapy. That is just, bro, I don't even know what to say, bro. That is wild. And not to mention the fact that, like, I get it. I'm actually happy for the kid whose parents basically learned that there were electroshock therapy and then they removed him. Like, they're like, you know what, my son can disobey me and do shit like that, but at the end of the day, I still want him alive, kind of, to be a parent, so let's do that. And then there are families who just chose to proceed with it. That's what terrifies me. It's like, huh? It's like, is your life that miserable that you don't mind your children kind of going through it? It's like, that is just, I don't know. I feel like a logical thought process would just basically say, hey, yeah, I think preservation of life kind of supersedes any and all other like activities. And then they say that, oh, but society accepts this, so I think, and they think it's good, so hence it must be good. I feel like that is a dangerous tangent to walk on, because in this case, it can lead to horrifying results. And then the unfortunate truth is, if enough people believe in it, then it'll never truly be, it'll never be truly be called out for the problem that it is, which is it's basically a lunatic who's just going around enjoying the sadistic pleasure of shocking people. And if he gets to have applause and like adulation just for doing that, then that's exactly what he's going to go and do. That's exactly what he's doing right here. And that is horrifying, to say the least.
The more you complied with Uncle Yang's methods and admitted you were wrong and sorry, the sooner you would be considered cured. All Tang Fei wanted was revenge on Uncle Yang.
I can see that.
He went online and wrote about his experiences and connected with other victims. In these circles, Uncle Yang became known as the Monster Killer. The online outcry spread fast. Initially, the Chinese World of Warcraft community was in uproar. A wildly popular protest machinima was released, which also criticized censorship and narratives of internet addiction in China at large. Criticism of Uncle Yang then quickly made it to mainstream media. Public perception of his methods shifted and started to be deemed excessive. In July of 2009, China banned electroshock therapy for internet addicts.
Okay.
But that didn't stop Uncle
Right.
Yang. He skirted the new law by slightly adjusting his methods. He claimed it was not the same as ECT and rebranded it as electronic acupuncture. And despite the bad press, many desperate parents kept sending their kids to him. Up through 2016, he had treated around 6,000 patients.
Victims, you mean?
The whole time, Room 13 reportedly was still in operation. Then, it finally, officially closed.
Okay.
We could not find out what Uncle Yang is up to today.
As I understand, he has his own hospital, if I'm not wrong, right? I think he's still running out there, if I'm not wrong.
By 2017, hundreds of internet addiction boot camps were in operation all over the country. By that time, it was widely known that it's not just Uncle Yang's facility that is abusive. Weibo users were in outrage over the widespread abuse.
Yeah.
How could these camps still be open? How could parents still send their kids there despite the onslaught of bad press?
Because it's, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying this, I think people kind of mischaracterize love and concern with the need for discipline and, obedience. I think the problem here is, I think love as a concept is a lot more foreign, because it simply is that you show love differently in the sense that, it's not as affectionate or it's going to be as, very willingly, like hugging your son or daughter. It's not about that. I think affection to a lot of people in these regions of these parts of the world, I think, is, setting up a good life for their children. I think the way you show love is just by being successful and by putting food on the table, which I think with a lot of younger children, as when you're exposed to the internet and we actually are exposed to what normal affection and love should look like, it is a massive culture shift. It's kind of like oh wait, this is what it should be like. Why am I being treated like this? And there's almost like a rejection of the societal approach. And eventually, that kind of translates into just plain disobedience. It's like it doesn't make sense. It's like if you have parents that are just treating you as just their getaway free card. It's like get out of jail free card, which is like when they get older, you get to take care of them. That's it. That's your only purpose of existence. It's only a matter of time before children begin to resent you for it. Like that's just the truth. If you truly took care of them, loved them as a person, there would be no doubt in my mind that they would do their level best to take care of you. That is just how children are raised. That's how children have always looked up to their parents. But the fact of the matter is, and what people have always told me is like most children, if not all of them, are screwed up by their parents. There is the truth of the matter is, when we grow up and we realize the situations we've been down the road on, it kind of becomes like, either you could sit down and complain about what you did or what you didn't have, or you can sit down and basically say, okay, I'm going to do that differently. I'm going to do that differently. I understand what my parents are trying to do with this, but I would actually have to prefer doing this instead. So as an adult, you get to make better choices in your life. And that's kind of the approach we should be taking. But in regions like this, where you put society's thought, approach, and appreciation of your life higher than what the people around you care about, then you're going to cause so many more problems. Because people would rather just dismiss their own thought, dismiss their own weight of their own thinking, to basically say, well, the culture and the society says this is good for you, hence this is good for you. That genuinely, in my mind, I will never accept that. I think generally put, I care about the opinions of my parents. I care about the opinions of people close to me. I care the opinions of my close friends. Of course, if I have an argument with a stranger on the street, I'm not going to really have a problem with it. If society comes and tells you, hey, by the way, you shouldn't be doing this, I say, okay, is there a good reason for that? You would at least think before you do that. The fact that you have parents knowing their children are going to get electroshock therapy and decide to go there and send them there themselves, I don't think they're being malicious, but I genuinely think there's a lack of thought. There's a lack of actual application of their own mindset of, am I caring for my child by sending them there? And then they might say, well, the desperation is simply because the children are getting addicted to the internet. The question isn't, is your child addicted to the internet? The question is, why are they addicted to the internet? What is their home life so bad or so controlling that they find relief on the internet? And that's more than likely the case. And those answers to those questions are not going to be really easy, because they basically will point fingers back at you and say, well, you aren't being a good parent. I'm sorry for rambling, but I think that's just the truth. That's my understanding of it. I don't think you want to really solve the problem of internet addiction. Give your children a good life. And I'm not saying it has to be luxurious or anything else like that, but genuinely speaking, just spend time with them, talk with them, and actually hear them out. I guarantee the first kid here in this story was like, I want to be a drummer. If the parents just said, hear me out, you can do drumming, we'll put money for classes for you to go drumming, but listen, we think going for engineering or going for being a doctor is your best chance at being successful. We'll give you a deal, okay? You do the engineering and the STEM, and in your free time you can do drumming. And if you can do drumming full time, go right ahead. That's probably, I think, the best approach. So you still have a backup plan. If drumming fails, you go back to your college. You go back to finishing your studies, and then you go back into the real workforce and just make money that way. It's fine. Because at the end of the day, parents want what's best for their kids, and it's unfortunate that sometimes society takes advantage of that care and trust by basically just saying, hey, your kid is kind of corrupted by this magical thing that you have no idea about, so you need to listen to us who are more well informed than you. And parents who are unfortunately not in the know or really have the time to really learn about the internet or more modern day advances, just basically put their kids through hell. That's it. That's the truth. I'm sorry for rambling for 10 minutes right here, but that's basically it. It's a sad world, but that's the truth. Honestly speaking, you want to solve a lot of problems, just sit down with your kid and talk to them. Genuinely sit down and talk to them and understand what problems they're going through. And if you think you can help them, genuinely try helping them. Because I think, and I've faced this before, is as long as I know my parents are genuinely and sincerely doing their best for me, I don't really care how they approach it. They could be angry, they could be pissed off, but I'd still love them because they genuinely cared for what was best for me. As far as I was concerned, I was happy with that. That's enough. They don't have to be the most progressive in their approach. But all I need to know is I have their support. That's enough for me. The fact that you have kids here whose parents just gave up on them and just said, go to these institutions. That kills that sense of self-esteem. That is. I would personally view that as parental abuse. And people can come up and say, that's my opinion. Fair enough, it is my opinion, but I think that it is what it is. I think it's simply because there are parents who are emotionally stunted that just don't know how to deal or raise their kids because they were raised poorly as well. That's just facts.
There were beatings, suicides, and reports of kids ordered to lie on their stomachs all night in snow. A 19-year-old woman died when her treatment consisted of being lifted and dropped. In one famous
hold on, stop right there.
Died when her treatment
Stop with that bullshit. It's not a 19-year-old woman. It's a 19-year-old girl. It is a girl that died there. No. We're not going to just say, oh my God, 18 means woman. No. That is a young girl that had a bright life ahead of her that was killed prematurely because of fucked up situations like these. And that pisses me off, bro. You're just trying to hide it behind the
being
gun.
lifted and dropped. In one famous case, a child died just 2 days after being checked into a camp that promised gentler approaches than the more notorious camps. The boy's body was covered in bruises, and an autopsy confirmed more than 20 external injuries and several internal ones. The exact cause of death was never determined.
Gee, I wonder what causes bruising and the internal injuries. Wow, it's almost as though he was beaten up, or at least some form of physical torture. You tell me.
But the camp was shut down shortly after.
Deserved it.
The nation was shocked even more when a 16-year-old girl tied her mother to a chair and let her starve, as revenge for placing her in one of the camps.
Honestly? I'm trying to think and basically say if the girl was out of line for doing that. If you had a hard life and you found respite in the internet, I remember back in the old days when YouTube was there, I remember many times when I'd go to school, come back, and I would just be like, bro, through tuitions and everything, I would just wait for like that hour and a half that I get just to watch YouTube, and I'd just be like, bro, that is my escape for like an hour and a half. Let me just escape the world for a little bit and I can come back and deal with it tomorrow. It's like something you can lean on. The fact that she had that taken away, the fact that she knew her mother did not trust her enough to solve her own problems, put her through something that's akin to hell, probably. And the girl underwent that, survived that, came back, and then killed the mom. I'm sitting back here and thinking, would I blame the kid for parental abuse that abused her so hard that she came back and basically said, no, I don't think you deserve to be my mother anymore. You can go and fuck yourself, you can die. The unfortunate truth is, since she's 19 years old, she will be tried as an adult and probably be persecuted as such. But the smart thing she could have done is just walk away from home and do her own thing. That just is it. But was this unexpected? No. I think this was the natural conclusion of what would happen when you force your children into situations where they have to go up against monsters and people who are more than willing to take advantage of their situation. So, yeah. Was this surprising to people? I don't think so. I think people say, oh my God, they were shocked this happened. I don't know if they're that ignorant or they knew it was going to happen and they had to play ignorant to prevent the fact that the only other conclusion would be they'd be seen as monsters for knowing this could happen.
Share and let her starve as revenge for placing her in one of the camps. One camp came under fire when former detainees revealed that children were repeatedly placed in 10-day solitary confinement. The camp was shut down and the founder was jailed.
Okay.
Solitary confinement is in violation of the China-ratified UN Charter Against Torture. But some camps were not condemned for this practice, most notably the first, Tao Ran's, a camp that was funded by the government. In the 2013 documentary Web Junkie, Tao Ran's staff is filmed openly discussing the merits of placing children in solitary confinement. In fairness to China, it's not the only country with rehabilitation camps that function more like prisons with widespread abuse and torture. Most notably, the troubled teen industry in the United States is alive and flourishing, despite an ongoing media frenzy around its horrific practices. These are alleged to include beatings, starvation, and solitary confinement. But a key difference is that in China, the camps have stronger ties to the government and military. Duck is in no doubt that the CCP was well aware of how his school operated.
Oh, of course.
Just for my own safety and well-being, I don't think I can make any commentary about CCP itself, but what I can tell you is that almost everywhere, in every education facility, there's got to be a
Of
private
course.
branch. Any major university, any primary school, either public or private, they got to have a sector.
A 2022 report in Sixth Tone, a state-owned Chinese newspaper, asserts that abusive internet addiction camps still exist. Some of the most notorious camps simply changed names or addresses and continue to operate. The
Because once
article
again, people keep forgetting that, oh, okay, yeah, it's because they want to take care of children. No, it's a business. They want to make money. And they know for a fact that $900 a month is, bro, that's twice the wage that most normal people would make there. And then that is just, I don't know, man. It's just wild to me that they could get away with that.
claims that
That is
after
wild.
a while, the controversies around abuse were less and less in the media, almost like people wanted to forget about this ugly chapter in recent history.
Yeah, think about culture and society, isn't it? It's just like, oh, let's just sweep this under the rug. And the problem with that is, can't really blame society or culture that was formed around certain circumstances that it had to develop. But the truth of the matter is, if you do forget your history, you're doomed to repeat it. It's just only a matter of time before that cultural wisdom, which vanishes, comes back to bite you in the ass later.
But as memories of the camp's abusive practices started to fade, the internet is once again the scapegoat for any socially undesirable behavior.
Yeah.
Whatever is really going on in these camps today, it is clear that China is still very concerned with the effect of the internet on its young population. And Tao Ran continues to be the go-to guru for all things regarding internet addiction. In fact, he's starting to publish scientific papers that are gaining traction in the United States and other countries. Former detainees like Doug are still grappling with their experiences. Some are turning their trauma into art. The 2020 show Crossfire is partly based on the clinics and went viral in China, gaining 100 million views in just 4 days. There's a video game called Breakout 13, where you're trapped in Uncle Yang's clinic.
Oh my god.
And finally, the recent virtual reality film Diagnosia takes you inside the memories of a former detainee.
I wouldn't wish that for anyone. But I can imagine that, as time goes by and as technology improves, it really is going to be a tough kind of situation to kind of imagine, well, how the next generation or other future generations going to deal with the internet. Because I remember when I was born, I don't think I've touched much about the internet until like really late 2007, 2008. Because until then, I was just with books, basically. I remember reading a lot of books. I don't think I was introduced to the internet until I was a teen. And I think that had its advantages because it's easy to forget that there are generations that have come after that which have always lived in the age of the internet. Like they were born, the internet was there. They could not imagine a time without the internet. And I understand that I was maybe part of the last generation where you weren't introduced to the internet when you were born. Like it only came up much later on in life. So that had some advantages, sure. But it's only going to get much more easier and more convenient to access these services. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think curbing the internet use by itself is going to be the biggest solution to the problem. I think it genuinely is giving your kid a good environment, having them, be raised in an environment where they don't see a reason to just go on the internet and then just have like a very limited way of social approach. I think if you love your child, you take them out to trips, you get good food, you raise them up, you go play golf or you play badminton or you play tennis, whatever sport you play, even football or cricket, you spend time with your kids, and it just comes as a natural conclusion of you would prefer like face-to-face, like close social interaction far more intimately and far more, better for your soul than something you watch through a screen, which is sure. Like the whole parasocial experience of, you have like big streamers or big YouTubers where people have entire relationships with them because they just watch their content, right? And that's crazy because it's almost as though people have tried substituting what real relationships, real discussions with what, normal people do every day with just the internet. And it seems to like satisfy like the instinctual urge to talk to people, but it is still losing out a connection in your heart and in your mind, which is like, I don't really have a close friend to talk to kind of situation. So that's a difficult place to be in. I think, and I know this to be true, is like if you think children are raised in environments where they don't have much physical contact with the outside world and they don't have many people or friends that they can talk to, I would still consider that to be child abuse. Because I think if you don't introduce your child to what socializing is, or or society in general, like talking to people, which is a fundamental part of what it means to be a human being, that is almost instinctually like driven into us. We are a social being. We need to talk to people. And the moment that's taken away from us, it really really weakens you in a way. You don't really feel as strong as you do without having people to talk to. And I definitely feel for like kids who don't have brothers or sisters, basically people who you might always have an argument with, but you would be more than willing to have that argument with someone than rather just reading alone or just watching TV alone or playing games alone. 100%. So I feel like I've rambled enough, but you want to solve a problem like this, it's more than just a societal problem. I think it's a problem that comes down to how children are being raised. And I think it comes really down to the society's value placement of like these schools and colleges above all else, which is unfortunate, because you have some of the best and brightest minds coming out from more regional colleges who make far bigger impacts. I've seen people who hold their like college degree as the highest, basically saying, like, I've passed out from this college, and they make that part their entire personality. And look, that's good, that's great, but I think there's more to a person than just the college you passed out with. I think there's more to you as a person. Like, what are your hobbies? What do you do? What do you work on? What do you, do you go and exercise? There's a lot of things. Who do you know? Can I talk to someone else from your family? Do you know? There's so many things you can talk to people, right? But if you become so one-dimensional that if you can take just one aspect of someone's success away and their entire being falls apart, then it's a poorly constructed being in the first place. It's a very shallow existence, and it doesn't sustain itself, and that's just a hard life to live, man. I look at this and I kind of just feel sorry, because it's the societal expectations that are placed on people that are just slowly crushing them. And society really wants to give the value that, but we're giving all these people a chance. They deserve to kind of, be their own person, but at the same time, they need to be conforming with what the society believes in. There's a fundamental difference, because I think societal cultures are fundamentally, inherently, like, split apart from individualistic cultures, like the US, for example. But you have two extremes of its approach, is it not? Like, you have the approach of being too individualistic that you don't even want to support the society in certain ways, and you might have societies that are so interconnected that they just don't have any individual characteristic, where every nail that sticks out is hammered down. So there are two extremes of the culture, and I think it's about the importance of balancing those two approaches. That's the best way you can do it. But I think I've rambled enough. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, this is a depressing video to watch. I'll be honest, this is a very depressing video. I didn't think, Yang's name would just come in here, but the moment I saw that name, it was just like red alert in my mind. I was like, wait a minute, I know that name. But yeah, catch you, beautiful bastards, in the next one. Peace. Take care. Nice.